Kevin Costner's hit Western series just ended with America's bloodiest land war that feels very relevant in 2025. Kevin Costner's The West recently wrapped up its 8-episode run on the History Channel, with host Kevin Costner bringing a fresh, even-handed perspective on the history of the American West. The docuseries challenges long-held beliefs about the West and the storied figures that contributed to its growth. Heroes are revealed to be less than heroic, and the villains of the West, primarily the indigenous peoples, are given a voice long ignored, with the stereotypical image of the wild natives hunting down settlers for no justifiable reason rightly corrected to being good people who are fighting to keep the ancestral lands and homes that were being forcefully taken away. The series reveals truths about historical events like the Fetterman Massacre, which stands as the U.S. Army's worst frontier defeat ever. But the biggest appeal of Kevin Costner's The West, arguably, is in bringing long-forgotten moments to the fore, highlighting events that have rarely been discussed in the media. Its final episode, Johnson County Wars, is one such tale, detailing the events of the 1892 skirmish in northern Wyoming. Only in this episode does the truth about the heroes being heroic and the villains being villainous remain unaltered. If anything, those roles are even more clearly defined, with Costner detailing the war that reveals the ugliness of man against man in the West. Cattle barons initiate war on homesteaders in Kevin Costner's The West's Johnson County Wars. In the 1880s, cattle barons in Johnson County ruled over their customary ranges, becoming deeply resentful of anyone who would challenge their right to run the cattle on public land. That included 2 homesteaders lynched by 6 cattlemen on July 20th, 1889, whose only crime was having a homestead in the middle of the cattlemen's range. The cattlemen spread falsities about the two, claiming they were justified in their actions, just as they were with the numerous homesteaders they tried to take to court for cattle rustling. Those cases didn't give them the results they wanted, and although they claimed the juries were rigged, the truth, as detailed in Kevin Costner's The West, is that they wanted to punish the owners of small herds who dared to use public land for grazing. So in 1891, cattle barons took action, forming an assassination squad of Wyoming Stock Growers Association employees. A man from Newcastle, Tom Wagoner, was their first victim, lynched for trading horses. They turned their attention to Nate Champion, who they declared king of the cattle thieves. Champion, true to his name, stood tall against the barons, insisting that his herd had as much right to the public land as they did. Champion was a problem, and a 5-man assassination squad was called in to bring him down, attacking him in a cabin on November 1st, 1891. They failed dramatically, with Champion sending them running after hitting one in the arm and killing another with his pistol. He got a good look at one of the men, and investigators tracked him down, forcing him to admit the names of all the members in front of 2 witnesses. Local papers pushed for charges against the cattlemen believed to have employed the squad, but the barons arranged for those witnesses to be assassinated in December, uniting the people against the higher-ups and looking to have them charged. The evidence was overwhelming, and there would surely be convictions. That forced the cattlemen's hands, and they, with a host of invaders, made their way north to invade Johnson County in March 1892. Justice is for the rich, as Kevin Costner's The West's finale proves. The key was Champion, whose testimony would be the most damaging, and it was decided to go to the KC Ranch where Champion and other rustlers were holed up. 50 men surrounded his cabin, and despite valiantly holding them off for hours, the invaders torched the cabin, shooting him down when he came out on the afternoon of April 9th, 1892. Adding insult to injury, they pinned a note on his chest that read, "Cattle thieves beware." The cattle thieves responded, with a 400-man posse holding the invaders up at the TA Ranch, and over 3 days they slowly moved in, intent on forcing the invaders out with dynamite. They never got a chance, however, when soldiers from nearby Fort McKinney arrived and took the invaders into custody. The soldiers were called in by the governor of Wyoming, Amos Barber, who knew about and supported the invasion and contacted U.S. President Benjamin Harrison for approval. Once the invaders were in custody, the governor assumed control, But any hopes of real justice were thrown out the window when he refused to allow the invaders to be questioned, and generally threw a wrench into the investigation and prosecution by Johnson County authorities. Johnson County was still on the hook for feeding and housing the invaders, though, and with no financial assistance from the state, the charges against the invaders were dismissed, with no funds to continue furthering prosecution and no jury available to try the cases. The people of Wyoming would soon vote out the woeful politicians, and eventually, peace would come between the small cattlemen and the cattle barons, with the Wyoming Stock Growers Association being open to all stock growers in 1893. The Johnson County Wars episode highlights the ugly truths of the injustices of the Johnson County Wars. And as the details are brought to life, the long-forgotten tale bears eerie similarities to today's world. The series, as a whole, echoes similarly, and while there has been no news of a second season, the history of the American West certainly has more stories to be shared without the rose glasses of time. Hey friends, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like. Got a question, opinion, or suggestion? Drop a comment below. I read all of them, and I often feature interesting ones in my next videos. And most importantly, for more exclusive boxing highlights and celebrity news, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support helps us grow and keep bringing you awesome content. See you in the next video. Stay safe and take care.